Hey everyone, JC here. So I want to share a quick and fun practice with you today for shifting your experience and energy around disturbing thoughts. And you might feel like, disturbing thoughts? Fun. Exactly. So I generally focus a lot more on the emotional and sensory motor realms, but I wanted to touch on the mind today. So, what are disturbing thoughts? I'm defining them as any abstraction idea that enters your mind and creates a contraction in your awareness and perspective. And it can also encompass more areas like creating a contraction in your mood, sensations, sense of self, and connection to the world. They can take the form of like talking down on yourself or others, judgments, worries, insecurities, fears, limiting beliefs, like discouraging thoughts, like I can't do this, things like that. Personally, I don't see disturbing thoughts as bad, of course. I see them as attempting a protective function, like I discussed with worry in another video. Perhaps the protection is well timed, or as more often the case, maybe misguided. But I do experience them as limiting my sense of self, my sense of connection with other beings, with the land, with my bigger sense of the world and the cosmos. And it's usually limiting in ways that don't serve my values. If I'm believing and buying into those thoughts, thinking that they're true. So that's why I work with mine. So let's contrast that with expansive thoughts, which open up your sense of self, connection to the world, and that can look like insights, intuition, certainly epiphanies, breakthroughs, also taking in different perspectives and experiences that really enhance and expand your aperture on the world. I can even feel when I'm talking about each, like the sense of contraction and expansion. So for this video, I'm just going to go right into the fun practice. At some point, I'll definitely go deeper into the mind, rewiring, collaging memories. There's some pretty cool stuff you can do there. But let's go to fun. So, dancing with disturbing thoughts. Part of what can make thought difficult to work with is that it's abstract. So, if we want to transform our relationship with something, we need a defined something, right? So, I'm going to give you an example from me that I did the other day. And you can just listen to the process, you can see how it goes, or you can pick your own thoughts, or maybe you've thought the same thought as my example. And just to give a little context, I usually, wouldn't do a process like this if I was like really in a stronger reaction or a stronger experience. It was more toned down. I kind of usually go thoughts last. So, okay, so this is how it started. It's a little bit vulnerable to share, actually, but I think it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Okay, so I noticed a pattern of feeling a little bit sad when I would see a bunch of somatics events online, like all these summits and workshops, and it kind of caught me because it's like, obviously I'm also thinking like, this is awesome. People looked at me like I came from another planet when I used the word somatics just a few years ago. So it's really amazing. So I was like, like, what's going on here? Are there some thoughts that come up when I see those events? And I found a few, and I worked with one in particular. So the first piece is I defined one thought, and I actually imagined it. I'm going to go through it. So I actually imagined it, and I physically moved it with my hands. You can practice with me if you have something. Taking it out of my brain and my headspace, and I read the words in front of me in my hands. And the words were, I don't have a place here. So, if I'm really believing that's true, I can see why I would feel some sadness, right? The other piece is notice how vague that thought is. I don't have a place here. Anyone could apply that thought to any situation, which is like a really different quality than an insight or an intuition that's like hyper specific. So that's another clue. So that thought drifted into my consciousness, and I was kind of believing it for a moment, and that brought some sadness. And the sadness was helpful because it clued me to go looking up there in my mindscape. So now I found that, I picked it out, and I'm simply looking at the thought. So what can I do? Well, I might not want to take it in, but I also don't want to reject it. I don't want to push it away either. That takes a lot of energy, and I haven't personally found that's ever worked for me or anybody that I've worked with. So now we're getting to the fun. If I'm not believing it and I'm not rejecting it, I might want to dance with it. So I picture that. So I pictured that thought in front of me, in my hands, and I sensed into its qualities. I don't have a place here. And as soon as I sensed into that, there was this quality of emptiness and a lack of rootedness to the earth, like a floating up. And immediately I was holding a balloon filled with helium so strong that it was actually being pulled up by it. So I just went with that for a bit, like, oh, what does that feel like? And then I pulled the balloon down, and I opened up the tie. I let some of the air out, tied it back up, and I turned it into one of those balloons that you can bounce around and play keep up with. Right? So I did that for a while. And then I wanted it to have a little bit more mass to play with it. So I brought in a little bit of dirt from the earth, just pulled some of that in, put it into this balloon. And I also imagined a river, some water. I pulled some of that in, added it, add some fluidity to see what that be like. And I combined those elements with that thought, and it became like gack. Like slime, basically. So I played with that for a little bit, like stretching it. But it's kind of everywhere. It's kind of like, it's falling, it's like, ugh, okay. So I was like, all right, let me take a little bit. So then I took a little bit of the water out, back into the river, and it became like this, just a sort of ball that I could move around. And I just played with that. And you can sense into that yourself if you like. It might feel like played with that a little bit. And then I looked at it again, right? After playing with it, after moving around, after dancing with it. And I looked at it. Okay, there it is. This is the I don't have a place here ball. It's not so intimidating. It's not so intimidating. And I have a lot more agency in what I do with that thought, with this ball. It's a lot more neutral, a lot less charged, more chill. And it kind of feels okay. Like, it's okay if that ball is here in the mix, or if the balloon is here, or the gack. It's allowed to be here. It feels okay. It can come in and out, like the balloon might float in and then it might go, and that feels pretty okay to me. So, you can shapeshift your thoughts. So, use different elements to mold, to grow, to shrink, and you can dance with them. So, define, imagine, dance. Define the thought as one simple sentence. Imagine the qualities in an object you can hold and dance with it. Have fun.